The planet of Narath was a barren, dusty world, known across the galaxy for its brutal auctions of slaves. A place where beings of all races, from far and wide, came to sell and buy the most desperate of souls. It was here that Kara, a young woman with dark eyes and a face hardened by the struggles of captivity, stood among a crowd of many. Kara had once been free, a part of an underground movement that fought for human rights in a galaxy where humans were often seen as weak and expendable. But that was before the betrayal. A group of rebels had turned her in, and now she was a prisoner, just one of many who would soon be sold to the highest bidder. The auction was held in a large, open arena, the sky above nothing but a dull orange haze. Thousands of spectators filled the stands, most of them alien traders, wealthy beings who made their fortunes by owning slaves. Kara's heart pounded in her chest. She was afraid but also numb. The world she knew was slipping away, and there was nothing left but the cold reality of what was to come. She was pushed onto the stage by a large, brutish alien guard. The audience's eyes turned toward her, scanning her body as though she were nothing more than a commodity. Kara had seen this before. Humans were always treated this way. Weak, less intelligent, expendable. It didn't matter that humans had built entire civilizations, created technologies, and fought countless wars to survive. To many, they were still nothing more than tools. The auctioneer, an alien with slick green skin and cold, calculating eyes, stepped forward with a smirk on his face. He raised a small electronic device, and with a mechanical voice he began the bidding. "Human female, age 22, healthy and strong," he announced, his voice booming through the speakers. "Starting bid 100 credits. A low murmur of laughter spread through the crowd. Most of the bidders knew humans were worth little more than the cheapest labor. Few of them had any interest in the women or men they bought. They simply used them for hard labor, often sending them to work in the darkest parts of the galaxy, where survival was impossible. Kara's mind raced. 100 credits, that was all she was worth. She wasn't strong enough to fight back, and no one would save her. All she could do was try to hold on to her last shred of dignity. The bidding began in earnest. The price started at 100 credits, but it quickly dropped as bidders grew more indifferent. Some of the wealthy aliens looked bored, glancing at their watches or chatting amongst themselves. One by one, the bids came in. 50 credits, 30 credits, 20 credits. Kara could hear the laughter of the crowd. They didn't see her as a person. She was just a tool to be bought and used, no better than a piece of furniture. The auctioneer's voice rang out again, his tone growing more desperate as the bids became smaller and smaller. "Going once, going twice." Kara's heart sank. She wanted to scream, to demand they stop, but she couldn't. All she could do was stand there, numb to the world around her. Her body was still, but inside a storm raged. Was this all her life would ever be? Just as the auctioneer was about to declare the sale final, something changed. A new voice cut through the crowd. A deep, gravelly voice, calm and steady, that made everyone pause. "I'll take her," the voice said. The entire arena fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the speaker, unsure of what had just happened. A lone figure stood in the back of the crowd, his silhouette hard to make out in the shadows. The auctioneer squinted, confused. "Excuse me?" he asked, clearly unsure whether he had heard correctly. "What do you mean you'll take her?" The figure stepped forward, revealing himself. He was a tall, rugged man, dressed in the weathered clothes of a rancher. His boots were caked in dirt, his face marked with the roughness of a life spent outdoors. He had short dark hair and a beard that looked like it hadn't been shaved in days. His face was lined, not with age, but with hard-earned experience. "I said, I'll take her," the man repeated, his voice low but firm. He glanced around at the alien spectators who had been laughing at Kara just moments ago. "And I'll offer you 5,000 credits." The crowd gasped. 5,000 credits was a huge amount, far more than anyone else had offered. The auctioneer blinked, taken aback by the sudden surge of interest. He wasn't used to seeing a human bidder, especially not one who would pay such an extravagant price. The man's name was Jackson West. He was a rancher from the faraway world of Terran, a planet where humans were not slaves but survivors. Jackson had seen the suffering of his people, the way they were exploited, hunted, and pushed to the edges of the galaxy. He had been fighting for years quietly in his own way, but he was no fool. He knew that this auction, this moment, could change everything. The auctioneer hesitated for a moment, his mind calculating the situation. He was no fool either. He knew a good deal when he saw one. He nodded, his greedy smile returning. "Sold," he declared, his voice echoing across the arena. Jackson stepped forward, his hand outstretched. Kara, still dazed, was handed over to him without a word. She didn't know what to make of the situation. She had expected to be sold for a few credits, and now here she was, bought by a strange man, for a sum that could buy a small planet. The crowd murmured, unsure of what to make of this turn of events. Some looked disappointed, others angry, but Jackson didn't seem to care. He turned and began walking away, his long stride carrying him toward the exit. Kara followed, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to ask him why he had bought her, but the words wouldn't come. What was she supposed to say to a man who had just paid so much for her life? When they reached the outskirts of the arena, Jackson stopped and turned to face her. "You're safe now," he said quietly. "You're free." Kara didn't know what to say. She had never been free. Not in her life. Not like this. "Why did you buy me?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jackson looked at her, his expression serious. "Because," he said, "I believe humans have something that no one else does. We've survived against all odds, and I'm going to make sure we keep surviving." Kara didn't understand. She didn't know how to respond. But one thing was certain. Her life had just taken a strange and unexpected turn. As they walked together into the desert night, the distant sound of laughter from the auction hall faded behind them. It was a laugh that had been aimed at her. But now she had a chance to make them all laugh for a different reason. The sun had set over Narath, casting long shadows over the barren land. The cold desert air wrapped itself around Kara as she followed Jackson West, the man who had bought her, toward a small, quiet settlement far from the auction. The city was fading behind them, and the only sound was the crunch of their boots against the dry earth. Jackson was a man of few words, but there was something about him that made Kara feel like she was finally free, even if only for a moment. She wasn't sure what to think. After years of captivity, she wasn't used to kindness, especially from someone like him, a rancher. But there was something in the way he walked, with a sense of purpose. It was like he had a plan. They arrived at a small cabin after an hour of walking. It stood in the middle of a wide open field, surrounded by nothing but dust and wild grass. It was simple, a roof, 4 walls, and a small porch. Kara had expected a life of misery after the auction, but this was different. She had no idea where she was, but it didn't feel like the cage she had known before. Jackson opened the door, and they entered. The inside was even simpler. There was a small stove in one corner, a table, a few chairs, and a small bed in the far corner. It wasn't much, but it felt peaceful. Kara had not known peace in so long. For the first time, she took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. It was hard to accept, but she was beginning to feel like she was safe. Jackson walked over to the table and pulled a chair out for her. He gestured for her to sit. "You're probably wondering why I bought you." Kara sat down slowly, looking at him. "I am," she admitted. Jackson nodded, sitting across from her. "I'm not like the others. I don't see you as a slave. I see you as someone who can help us change things." Kara frowned. "Help? What are you talking about?" Jackson's face grew serious. "I'm part of a group that's been fighting for human rights for a long time. We've had our share of defeats, but we're still here. I bought you because I believe you're more than just a survivor. You're a part of something bigger, a part of something that could change the way things are for humans across the galaxy." Kara stared at him in confusion. "Change the way things are? But we're nothing. Humans are nothing." Jackson shook his head. "That's what they want you to believe. That's what they want everyone to believe. But we're not nothing. Humans have survived for centuries because we have something no one else has: determination. We fight when we have no reason to. We stand up when it seems impossible." Kara's mind raced. She had been taught to survive. That's all she had ever known. But now, sitting in this small cabin with Jackson, she could almost believe there was more, that maybe there was a reason to fight. But she didn't know how. "Why me?" she asked softly. "What do I have to offer?" Jackson leaned forward, his eyes intense. "You are not just a survivor. You are the descendant of something ancient, something important. Your bloodline traces back to the very first human leaders. You have knowledge, Kara. Knowledge that could change everything." Kara blinked in shock. "What do you mean?" I'm just Me. I don't know anything special. Jackson stood and walked over to a small shelf near the window. He pulled down a dusty book and handed it to her. This is one of the last remaining texts from the early days of human history. It's filled with strategies, philosophies, and ideas from when humans first began to unite and fight back. We've been studying it for years, but there's one part of it that only a few people know about. Kara opened the book, her fingers trembling as she flipped through the pages. It was filled with old writings, strange symbols, and drawings that seemed too ancient to understand. But as she flipped to a certain page, she saw something that caught her eye, a symbol that looked like a circle with an X through the middle. Jackson's voice interrupted her thoughts. That symbol represents the human leader who fought to unite our people. Her name was Sarah Kalin. She led the first human resistance against the alien overlords. Her bloodline was thought to be lost, but it's not. It's alive in you. Kara closed the book, the weight of Jackson's words sinking in. You're telling me that I'm related to her? Jackson nodded. Yes, and it's no coincidence that you were at the auction today. You were meant to be saved. You were meant to lead. Kara stood up suddenly, her head spinning. I'm just a normal person. I can't lead anyone. I don't even know where to start. Jackson placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip firm but comforting. You don't have to do this alone. We're all in this together. I brought you here because I know that with your knowledge we can finally fight back. We've been working in the shadows for too long, Kara. It's time to take a stand. Time to show the galaxy that humans won't be oppressed any longer. Kara didn't know what to say. The idea of leading a rebellion seemed impossible, but a small part of her couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. For the first time, she felt like there was a way out of the life she had been trapped in, but she didn't know if she was strong enough to take that first step. Before she could speak, a loud noise outside interrupted them. The sound of engines roaring to life, getting closer. Jackson's face hardened. They're here. Kara's heart raced. Who was coming? Were they here for her? For Jackson? Jackson grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the back door of the cabin. We don't have much time. You need to come with me. They ran outside, the wind whipping through their hair. In the distance, Kara saw a group of heavily armed vehicles speeding toward them, kicking up dust as they approached. Jackson led her to a small hidden cave near the ranch. Inside, a group of people waited. Men and women, all humans, all wearing the same worn-out clothes. They looked up as Jackson and Kara entered. One of them, a tall woman with sharp eyes, stepped forward. Jackson, what's going on? She asked urgently. They found us, Jackson said. Tiberian's forces are closing in. Kara's stomach turned. Tiberian. The name was familiar. He was the warlord who had destroyed countless human resistance groups. And now he was coming for them. We have to move, Jackson said. The rebellion starts now. And Kara. He looked at her with a determined expression. You are the key to everything. Kara took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. She didn't know how to lead. She didn't know how to fight. But she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let them win. Not today.